Hello and welcome back to Oishi Gets Too Invested in an Award Show That Usually Does More Bad Than Good. I'm Oishi, and I'm getting too invested in an award show that usually does more bad than good. Except I'm not really all that invested this year, and that's because of a combination of many of the Best Picture nominations being whatever this year, and the fact that the world is burning and people aren't freaking out enough. So here's a low-effort ranking of the 2025 Best Picture nominations. Disclaimer: I did not watch I'm Still Here, because I couldn't make it to the theater in time, so I'm leaving it out of this ranking. I've heard it's really good though, so if you've seen it, let me know how you feel about it. I did watch the rest of the nominations though, so let's get into it. Number 8, Emilia Perez. Obviously this one is at the bottom. It shouldn't even be here, and the fact it is at all is a disgrace. I don't want to talk about it for too long because I get genuinely upset even thinking about this movie. Also, the 2 hours I gave to it are just gone. I'm never getting those hours back, so I don't want to waste even more of my time talking about this piece of shit. Emilia Perez is what happens when Hollywood thinks it understands something even though it clearly doesn't. The entire thing is nonsensical. The performances are terrible, the music is terrible, I see no reason at all for this to be a musical in the first place, and the choice seems especially random because the people behind it clearly don't understand what makes a good musical. Emilia Perez's 13 nominations is further proof that the few times Academy voters actually get something right are the exception, not the rule. Emilia Perez is the rule, and I am exhausted by it. This movie has no merit. Next. Number 7, A Complete Unknown. Listen. I don't care. I'll probably get called stupid and unintellectual for this take. I do not care. You could not pay me to care about this movie, which I guess is one difference between me and the Academy. A Complete Unknown is as boring a biopic as boring biopics go. I had a fine enough time watching it, but the second it was over, I erased it from my brain. And I guarantee you that the second the Oscars are over, this movie will disappear into the ether, the newest addition to all the other mediocre Oscar bait biopics that no one remembers. There was such a remarkable lack of stakes, I found myself struggling to care by the end of this. The only thing I can give it is that Timothée Chalamet delivered a good performance. I think he did a good job of capturing Bob Dylan's idiosyncrasies. But while this performance was technically good, I felt nothing from it, and it bums me out to think this performance is his greatest chance at an Oscar thus far. I like Timothée Chalamet. I think he's incredibly talented, and I will forever stand by the opinion that his performance in Call Me By Your Name is one of the best film performances I have ever seen. If he was going to win for anything, I would have loved for it to have been for that movie. If you want to watch a movie about Bob Dylan, watch the documentary Don't Look Back. It's much better. As it stands, I don't care about A Complete Unknown. Can't wait to never think about it again. Next. Number 6, Wicked. Look, someone has to be the meh entry, and this year, for me, it's Wicked. I liked Wicked. I watched it in theaters and had a really good time. But it should not be on this list. I don't feel as violently towards it as I do Emilia Perez and A Complete Unknown, which is why it takes the meh spot. The singing was good, the performances were fine, the choreography was fun. Why is it on this list? Next. Number 5, The Substance. Okay, this one may rub people the wrong way, but it's my channel, so sit down. I liked The Substance overall. The concept is interesting, it had some great performances, and the body horror was genuinely unsettling. My issue with The Substance is that subtlety is an art that it does not have. The major theme of The Substance is shoved down your throat from the very beginning to the very end. The Substance feels like the first draft of a story I would write. An unpolished version that I put to page for myself with character arcs and themes that are incredibly obvious because I haven't yet done the editing work to properly bake them into the story. That is The Substance to a T. It feels like someone had an idea, they put it to page, and then they immediately started shooting. Subtext is awesome. Subtext is part of what makes great stories great, and it pains me to think that The Substance could have been a great story if it just took a step back. At first, I thought the obvious nature of it was a deliberate choice, but I don't understand why it would be. Am I missing something here? Please, if you have any insights, let me know. So, as much as I enjoyed The Substance, I can't put it any higher on this list, and I can't really say that I think it deserves a Best Picture nomination. I know I probably seem like a film snob or Oscars purist at this point, but I promise I'm not that hard to please. It's just that the 4 films I've talked about so far feel so disappointing to me. But good news, it only goes uphill from here. Next, number 4, Conclave. Finally, a movie that I'm kind of excited to talk about. Conclave was such a breath of fresh air for me, especially considering I watched Emilia Perez, A Complete Unknown, and The Substance back to back. Putting Conclave next to those is like putting my grade 3 drawings next to the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which is an apt comparison to make here. Conclave is gorgeous to look at. The cinematography and costume design is immaculate. I loved every second of it. Conclave is less about religion and more about politics. The whole thing surrounds the election of the new pope and the political maneuvering that goes into making such a decision. But it also understands the important role that religion plays in politics and the inherent power, whether deserved or not, that comes with the church and the pope. It's a dangerous game that they're playing here, one that could have adverse consequences if it isn't played right or if the wrong person emerges victorious. Conclave tries its best to address the contradiction between the church and society, and while it's a fairly simplified conclusion, the simplicity of it is kind of what I liked about it. Silence has been a cancer within the church, and I like to think that silence may also be the beginning of its change. I do understand why some people wouldn't jive with Conclave, especially if they've had more experience with the Catholic Church than I have, but I quite enjoyed it and felt it was a stoic but genuine attempt at something great. Next, number 3, Dune Part 2. This one is just amazing. Dune Part 2 was always going to be one of the best movies of the year. The sheer scale of it is astonishing. It is a spectacle in every sense of the word. The way I feel watching this is how I imagine people felt when watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This series is instantly classic, and I cannot wait to see how it ages. Dune 2 was one of my favorite theater experiences. Every frame is magnificent, and it is criminal that Denis Villeneuve wasn't nominated for his direction. Anyone can see that Dune's brilliance is guided at every point by Denis' hand. It would not be what it is without him. I think I said this about the first Dune, but I'll say it again. Dune 2 is a reminder of what cinema can be. I love tiny stories driven by emotion, probably more than most people do, but I am always in awe by size and scale. Dune is unbelievable in that regard. If we're talking technically, it's the best film of the year, and it deserves every accolade. Next, number 2, The Brutalist and Nickel Boys. I had a hard time deciding how to rank these two, so screw it, they tie for second. I loved them both for different reasons, and I can't really differentiate them in my head. Maybe that'll change going forward, but as of now, they both stand here. The Brutalist is a near 4-hour epic that blew me away. It makes its subject, Laszlo Toth, feel so real that I genuinely thought it was a true story. I only figured out it was fictional when I went to look up Toth and Google told me he wasn't real. Rather, Laszlo Toth is loosely inspired by Marcel Breuer and Ernyo Goldfinger, two Hungarian Jewish architects fascinated by modernism. The Brutalist treats its characters with such honesty and realism that you can't help but be taken in by their stories. Adrian Brody's portrayal of Laszlo is sharp but tender, and the film takes on an almost documentary-like feel at times, which contributes to that environment of truthfulness behind it. It's a tale of art and war, of lives that have been uprooted and the attempts to replant them in hostile environments that, even in the face of someone's passion and skill and grit and efforts at assimilation, will always remain hostile. Gorgeous cinematography, gorgeous score, The Brutalist is undoubtedly one of this year's bests. Nickel Boys is such a tender movie. The choice to tell this story from a first-person point of view was so unique and intelligent, and was done exceptionally well. Switching POVs between the two boys was seamless, and done at the most apt times. The risk you run with telling a story like this is that it might feel like a gimmick, or it might give the whole thing a video game-esque atmosphere. But Nickel Boys avoids that by making these two characters so present and combining the POVs with a dissociative, over-the-shoulder style for the time jumps that show how much of these boys has been left at Nickel. I did read the book before watching the movie, and I have to say that it's an incredible adaptation. The first-person POV makes the experience feel intimate, immersive, and inescapable. Both actors embodied these characters beautifully, and the dreamlike cinematography applied this disconcerting lens of love and safety to what is a hellish experience. Nickel Boys is a movie that hit me so hard, and I know it won't leave me for some time. It's beautiful and tragic and special, and I'm so glad it got a Best Picture nomination. Unique movies like this too often fly under the radar, and this one deserves to be seen. And that leaves just one movie. Number 1, Anora. I'm going to keep this short, because I don't know how to talk about this movie in a coherent way. I feel so strongly for Anora that anything I try to say will just devolve into maniacal laughing. Anora is a hilarious, chaotic, desperate, and heartbreaking roller coaster. I loved every second of it. I had no idea it was a comedy going into it, so I was pleasantly surprised when I, and the rest of the theater, found ourselves cackling throughout it. Mikey Madison is brilliant as Anora, and the entire cast bounced off each other so well, I was in awe of how well cast this movie was. Anora feels so real. It's full of love and anger and heartbreak. It's dreamlike, then nightmarish, then simply tragic. I adore this movie. It's the best of the year, it's the best of the nominations, and it's a winner in my heart. I wanted to end this video differently than I've ended my Best Picture rankings in the past. Because I was so disappointed by this year's nominations, I want to offer up movies that I think should have been nominated. Challengers is the one that immediately comes to mind. This was this year's biggest snub, in my opinion. Not only did it not get a Best Picture nomination, but it didn't get any nominations, which is nothing short of criminal. Challengers was one of the best looking, best written, best acted, directed, and scored films of the year. It's original and unique, and it's better than almost half the films that did get nominated. But I guess the Academy has something against Luca Guadagnino because we just aren't allowed nice things. This might be unpopular, but I think A Real Pain deserved more recognition, which is surprising considering I didn't think this film would be anything to write home about. But it ended up being one of the more special films I watched this year. It's very simple, but it's that simplicity that drew me to it. Kieran Culkin delivers a beautiful performance of a beautiful, complex character. I really liked it, and he'll probably win the Oscar, though I think it should go to Jeremy Strong, considering Culkin's performance already has a lot of him in it. Nosferatu is a feast for the eyes. Its impeccable cinematography and direction is only the starting point of how good this movie is. The whole cast delivered really strong horror performances, but Lily Rose Depp was the true star here. The Academy also hates Robert Eggers, which is such a shame, because horror has so much merit, especially the way Eggers does it, and I am impatiently awaiting the day horror gets its place in prestigious cinema. Small Things Like These was never going to make it into the awards circuit, and that's a damn shame, because, again, it's better than almost half of the nominees. It's small and quiet. Cillian Murphy delivers a silent but powerful performance, which is a great follow-up to his performance in Oppenheimer, and the way you can feel the bitter cold of winter through the screen was haunting. I highly recommend it. And finally, The Apprentice is a sickening look at the making of the world's most dangerous man. Sebastian Stan's performance is terrifyingly accurate, Jeremy Strong is stellar, and the whole thing is a nauseating nightmare of ego, vanity, and pure evil. It's astounding that this wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I cannot think of a more timely story to tell, and I genuinely believe that The Apprentice will go down as one of the most culturally significant films of this era. Those are my picks. I would exchange the bottom few films from the actual nominations for these ones in a heartbeat, which only makes me more frustrated with this year's picks, because it's not like there were no options here. 2025 may not have been an amazing year for movies like other years have been in the past, but we got some real gems. Alright, that's it. Let me know what your ranking is, and let me know how much you hated Emilia Perez. Of course, I have to close out with my obligatory annual reminder that awards aren't everything, clearly, and to not take the Academy too seriously. Anyway, watch the news, keep up with what's going on in the world, support Gaza, support Ukraine. If you're Canadian, buy Canadian as much as you can, and get on your knees and pray to Denis Villeneuve. If anyone's going to get us out of this, it's gonna be the Quebecois. Until next time.